welcome back to my channel. This is Heidi from My Reading Life, and this is the start of my mid-month book bash vlog. So I figured what I'd do is, because I don't really have any set goals other than to read about 1,000 pages, that's my goal. I'd like to read about 1,000 pages this weekend. I figured I'd go through all the books that are on my TBR for the month of September. So September, I'm focusing on cleaning up books that I had already started and want to finish, and also my booktube reading for the booktube prize, which is due at the end of the month. I am reading nonfiction, the final group. The last 2 months, that's what I've been doing. So it's the end of that period, and I have to have my voting. So I finished a book this weekend. I finished The Deficit Myth, Modern Monetary Theory and the Birth of the People's Economy by Stephanie Kelton. So I've been working on this one for several months. And you can see that I've tabbed it up, I took notes, I underlined, I annotated, all kinds of things with this book. It was super interesting. All about how the arguments that are made about the federal deficit being too large are just not what we should be worried about. That because the United States issues its own currency, and that currency isn't tied to anything, like we decoupled ourselves from the gold standard back in the 1970s. So because of that reason, the federal government can't ever run out of money, and that it is a myth that we should be thinking about the federal deficit or the federal budget the same way we think about a household budget, because obviously in your household budget you can run out of money, and even state budgets can run out of money. But the federal government, because they are the ones that are issuing the currency, they can't run out of money. Instead, they're constrained by things like inflation and real resources within the country, whether that be natural resources, labor, materials, whatever, that those are the things that we have to be concerned with, not with the actual cash dollars that the government has. And this is a very persuasive book. Each of the chapters takes a myth and sort of just takes it apart and explains why it's not anything real to be worried about. And it's just so frustrating to think about how we're taught about the federal budget and how the federal budget is talked about and how it's used as a weapon to fight against basically doing any of the social programs that people might want to do, whether it be universal health care or school lunch programs or even Social Security is, argued that, it's going to run out of money and people aren't going to get their Social Security. Well, yeah, it's all explained here in this book. So very well explained. Also gets into, especially at the end of the book, gets into the historic inequalities in our system, how things were set up to only benefit certain segments of the society, and how people of color and minorities were left out basically of a lot of social programming. And it really explains how to build a financial system that works for everyone in the country. And so I thought it was just simply excellent. Probably should be required reading throughout the United States. Certainly should be talked about in high schools across the country and in colleges across the country. I am just really sad it took me to the age of 47 before I heard any of this information. So I highly recommend this book to you if you're interested in why we shouldn't be so concerned about what number the federal deficit is. Excellent. Monday morning of mid-month book bash. I haven't been very good about checking in, have I? And I'm not doing very well towards my goal, even of my original goal of 800 pages this weekend. Lot going on this weekend, but I did manage to finish my audiobook of rereading Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond. I had read this many years ago and wanted to re-listen to it on audio. It's very good on audio, but I will say this paper copy is the reissued version from 2017. The book originally came out like 1998 or 1999, and the reissued volume, the most current volume, has new information, has an afterword written by the author. It has a new chapter about Japan. So there's new information in this version. So I did kind of go back and forth between the audiobook and reading the last, 70 pages or so of this book I read. So yeah, this is a nonfiction history of humankind and why certain areas of the globe have come to dominate and be what we call first world countries or developed nations, basically the Western world, and then other countries that have ostensibly more resources, better weather, whatever, why they have not developed and become the main powers in the world. And it's very thorough history, but Diamond does a really good job of writing it. So I think this is excellent. This is a classic in the genre. So if you haven't read this, I would highly recommend it. And it was very good on audiobook as well, so I can recommend that. So it's Monday morning, as I said. I do have to work today, but I have to drive quite a bit for work. So I am going to be audiobooking today, and I will be audiobooking a romance novel. Let me just take a peek here. What am I reading? It's my romance buddy read with Doris and Katie. Secrets of a Summer Night, and it's book 1 of the Wallflower series by Lisa Kleypas. So that is my audiobook today. See how I get on, and I will give you my wrap up at the end of the day for how many pages I read, but I can tell you right now, it's probably not going to be what my goal was. So it's time for me to wrap up my mid-month book bash for you guys. So I actually got quite a bit accomplished today, Monday. As I said, I started my new audiobook, and I had to do a lot of driving for work today. So that is, I had to look down here and see the name of it. It's Secrets of a Summer Night, which is book 1 in the Wallflowers series by Lisa Kleypas. Regency romance novel that I'm buddy reading with my Regency romance buddy readers, Katie and Doris. And it's just delightful. An audiobook. I think that I read this series when it first came out in the mid-2000s, but I'm not remembering it at all. So this story is, your typical very poor aristocratic young woman whose family has become impoverished, needs to land a wealthy husband. And the guy that is pursuing her is not a member of the aristocracy. He has earned his money in business, and so, of course, is looked down upon by the rest of society. But he's, of course, very attractive, and they have a lot of mutual admiration as far as attraction goes between the two of them. And it's a very great story. Lisa Kleypas does a great job writing friendship groups and family groups, and her dialogue is really fun and funny. And this particular story has some of my favorite tropes from romance novels, like somebody gets injured and the other person has to help nurse them back to health. We have a country house party that goes on for weeks and, of course, keeps throwing people into each other's vicinities. So yeah, lots of fun. Started that this morning and listened to 80% of it while I was going about my workday. So yeah, that was a big increase in pages read, even though I was listening to it. But when I converted it, it was a lot of pages. I also have started this book for the Book 2 Prize. This is After the Last Border, Two Families and the Story of Refuge in America by Jessica Goudeau. I've read the first 100 pages in this nonfiction work. Can't talk about it because it's for the Book 2 Prize. And I've also been working on this nonfiction book, Thunderstruck, which is by Erik Larson. And this is really excellent so far. I've read about the first 100 pages of this one as well. I'm buddy reading this with Patrice, Karen, and Doris, my nonfiction buddy readers. And this is telling the story. I'm not really sure how all the disparate parts come together, but it's the late 1800s, early 1900s. We're following this young scientist who is last name Marconi, who is developing wireless communication technology. And so there's all these competing scientists who are trying to work this out at the same time. So there's a race to be the first person to make a commercially viable product. So we've got that all going on. We've got a murder mystery that's going on. We've got some shenanigans around the Postal Service and the British government and the German government. We are in the period of time when people were really interested in communicating with the dead and seances and all that sort of stuff. This is also the time period where homeopathic and other kind of tinctures and quote unquote medicines are being developed. So there's a lot of, like Uncle John's syrup and all that sort of stuff being developed. So you got all these different competing things that are being developed and experimented upon and all this kind of stuff. And it sort of all is coming together. And Erik Larson does a really good job of weaving all the different pieces of the story together to sort of tell of a historical time period. And it's really, really fascinating. There's tons of super interesting little details in here, which Erik Larson does really well, but also keeps up a readable storyline, a narrative through line that makes you want to keep turning the pages, because there are some characters in this book that are like crazy. Their stories are crazy. Not they are crazy, but the stories are crazy. They may be crazy too in the end. Who knows? Anyway, I'm going to turn you around and show you my spread in my bullet journal to wrap this up for you. Okay, so here's my spread for the mid-month book bash. Very simple. I do have that super cute piece of washi tape. Thank you, Doris, for my kitty washi tape. So yeah, these are all the different things that I was working on this weekend as far as reading goes. I did complete 2 books. I completed The Deficit Myth and Guns, Germs, and Steel. I also read my most recent issue of The Atlantic. And then, as you can see, this is the big one right here, 307 pages of Secret of a Summer Night. That was the big one today, and it did get me over my goal of 800. I know I had talked about maybe getting to 1,000 pages for this weekend, but that just did not happen. But I feel pretty pleased that I did end up getting to over 800 pages. So yes, another successful mid-month book bash. I hope you're all doing well and finding some great books to read. I'll talk to you later. Bye.